Hi, I'm Bill Wild of Assured Research, and thanks so much for listening to this audio summary of our annual year-end, in this case, year-end 2024 reserve report. We've been doing this for a number of years. I personally have been doing this industry type of analysis for more than a couple of decades, I suspect, there's a lot to be learned. Our title this year is Redundant Barely, and that recognizes that our estimate of the industry loss reserve redundancy, which is now 1.9 billion at year end 2024, that's just 0.2% of reserves, means that our estimate is basically down to the flip of a coin. The industry's good guys and bad guys really are largely the same as they've been the last couple of years. The good guys are workers' compensation, property and auto physical damage, and in other liability claims made, accident years 2021 and 2022, which look notably redundant. The bad guys are other liability occurrence, reinsurance liability, and commercial auto liability. Now, the reason for our smaller estimated redundancy this year, we were at about $11.5 billion redundancy last year. This year, the bad guys are worse and the good guys became less good. Now, a recurring theme, and especially in our liability lines, is our recognition of this kind of classic actuarial conundrum. And that is, with so many reinsurers strengthening both IBNR and importantly case loss reserves in 2024, and also many at year-end 2023, you have to ask whether our methodologies, traditional actuarial methodologies, are compounding that work and thereby overstating the reserve need. Now, in our work, we tried to acknowledge that the development factors that we're using now incorporate, one would think, notably higher rates of future inflation, but we still show reserve deficiencies across most of the liability lines. Another thought we're going to pursue in the months ahead, especially with reference to other liability occurrence, is this kind of question of where the firewall might be between the bad years and the better years. We look back in the note at the last really bad reserving cycle and other liability occurrence at the very beginning of this century, and observe that accident years 02 and 03 kind of represented that firewall. So the question is, might accident year 2024 hold at the industry's current level of reserve need or ultimate loss ratio? That's not our forecast, but there's more work to do here. And we'll just give a quick shout out to workers' comp, or call out, better word. Our estimated redundancy of $8.8 billion is the lowest we've projected since accident year 2018, when we had almost the exact same number. And we're not calling for an immediate end to this line's record run as the industry's most profitable, but it sure feels like some of the air is coming out of the party balloon. Now, what I'll try to do here quickly is just give a couple of words on, in our note, the lines of business for which we built dashboards that you can look at. You can see the development factors, the trends, what we selected, and so on and so forth. In no particular order, private passenger auto liability really looks, looks okay. I think we estimate a $2 billion redundancy. Frequency was favorable in 2024, but there's of course always a risk of reversion to the mean. That being said, if there is indeed the economic slowdown that is in the news today, then that would be at least incrementally helpful for this line of business. Workers' compensation, as I mentioned, is looking less good. There's some red in the most recent accident years. Red in the parlance of this report means that loss development seems to be accelerating, and there's it's kind of a mixed bag looking ahead. There's the labor market, which slower job growth, less turnover should mean fewer workers' comp claims. That's good, at least in the sense that there'd be fewer claims. There'd also be less premiums. But we're also watching, concerned that if the number of people on Affordable Care Act plans or with health insurance broadly, if that number starts to come down from generational highs, that could lead to more workers' comp claims. Commercial auto liability, honestly, just all the trends look concerning. The development factors, we tried to recognize that the case reserves now incorporate higher levels of anticipated future inflation and social inflation, but we also try to be true to our research, which shows that the residual trend here is very high. And basically, when you put it all together, we do show a $4 billion deficiency. That's actually a little bit less, down from 5.4 billion last year, but that's of course after what is now many consecutive years of adverse development in this line. In other liability occurrence, probably the one that deserves the most attention, we estimate a $16 billion, a $15 billion deficiency compared to $6 billion last year. We're increasing our ultimate loss ratios by 7, 8, 9 points compared to the industry increasing their ultimate loss ratios by, call it 2 to 4 points. Here's where you'll look at the diagonal of the triangle. You see consistently rising development factors. Again, here we acknowledge the risk that we're overshooting because we're compounding what are now stronger case reserves. We try to acknowledge that, but anyway, more work to do here. We're going to especially spend time with the new liability supplement and try to tease out the underlying coverages responsible for most of the adverse development and the high loss ratios. Commercial excess and umbrella and facilities premises would be the two most likely candidates. Reinsurance liability, I'll just summarize and say it's basically the same story as basically the same story as with other liability occurrence, and there's more in the dashboard. And then I'll just conclude with a couple of good guys, which are, well, I'll mention first other liability claims made. Really interesting accident years 2021 and 2022. Really looks like that's when rates accelerated. The paid and reported loss ratios are much lower than they've been at similar stages of development in earlier years. We are some 7 points in ultimate loss ratio below what the industry is holding. That's like $4 billion and change of reserve redundancy. Sure seems like those years are booked very conservatively, but if we're right, that IBNR will need to be shifted to other liability occurrence. Pardon me. And then just ending on a positive note, special property and auto physical damage, which are now 10-year lines, those sure look to be reserved redundantly to the tune of about about $6 billion, less than we had last year when these two lines were together, but still favorable. The watchword, of course, for both of these is tariffs. Tariffs and the impact on costs, which could affect both, probably more future profitability than currently reserves, and also immigration reform could impact and roil the construction industry. So that's what we had for you. Really hope you have a chance to flip through the report. It's organized in a way that we hope you can get through quickly and still get a lot out of it. But we do hope you found some value in this summary. Thanks, and have a great rest of your day.